So let's begin for another section on the PHP. As we have already established, uh, the whole of this month, next month, maybe two, we shall be looking at PHP into details. And so in this video, we are just basically going to look at how to first and foremost connect your PHP file to database. So that will be one of the objective for this video. And then after being able to connect your what's the name your database to your PHP file successfully, we will look at how to maybe send a record into your database, and then we'll go and confirm whether it has been saved successfully or not. In all that we are doing, at the end of the day, you are supposed to pick a project, sit down yourself and say, I want to design this simple system for myself or for my family. Okay, and so let's just dive into it straight. In order to do this, the first thing that you need to do is to create your database from your database, platform to create your database. Okay, and already we have platforms where we can create our database from. That is you can create your database from the Lalagon or even the MySQL, the MMSQL Studio that we have installed. Okay, and so I'll just go straight to my database and show you. So from here, I'll just go to my MSQL database, and this is the database. Okay, I have created a database with the name PHP tutorials. Get it? PHP tutorials, and then I have a table also in it, and the name of the table is called login. Now I am going to connect a PHP file I am going to create to this. So at the end of the day, I will be able to insert record from the forms that the user interacts with. All right, so I'll minimize this because I have all the information already created. This is the database name, PHP tutorials, and then login. And the login is the table. All right, now I'll minimize it, and then I will take you all the way to my code. But before I go to the code, this is a simple, I mean, two input fields that we are going to use for this demonstration. That is first name and last name. First name and last name. If you study this very well, you will be able to modify it and even be able to change it to 4 or 5 input, like let's say first name, last name, gender, and all those things. So pay attention because I'll give you an assignment that will take like 4 or 5 inputs, and when you click, it will be submitted into your database. Now, because I am going to send every information that the person enters here, let's say Danny, and then come here, every information that the person enters, I'm going to send it into the database. My form input should not be more than my database, fields. So you can see I have only two, username and password. So this one will take the first name and this one will take the last name, only 2 columns. So the form that you are designing will determine how you will restructure your database. Okay, with that being said, let's go to the code and I'll show you what gave me this. Remember, if you want to be able to open your PHP application, you open your browser, type in localhost, hit on the enter key, and then as soon as you hit on the enter key, you will be able to see all your files in your PHP Laragon directory. So localhost port 81, enter, and then this is my work. All right, let's continue. So inside of my PHP tutorials folder, this is the PHP tutorials folder. I have 2 files so far, and this is the index page. Always the index page will come up first. And so this is the index page. I have my first name and last name. At this point, you all understand this, so there's no need coming here again. So I'll create as another file and name it insert.php, and that is the file that we are going to use to do our insertion command. If you look at the index file, you can see that just right after the form tag, we have an action, and the action is taking what is taking on insert.php. Insert.php is a separate file, and that is what we have created. So we are going to make sure that insert.php has certain lines of code, so that when we click, that lines of code will be executed. Okay, and we also have to create our DB connection file as well. So we have our DB connection file here. We are going to code on it, so we will be able to get uh, our database communicating with our PHP application, where we can send data into the database and we can also retrieve data from the database and a whole lot. All right, so let's dive on. All right, so we first and foremost code the connection string to see whether it's going to work or not. So as you can see, I have my DB Connect page opened and I'm going to code the connection string. So first I have to now list the connection strings that I'm going to be using. Okay, the connection string that I'm going to be using here before I continue. Okay, so as you can see, I have finished coding the PHP Connect code and I'm going to test it if it's connecting to the database or not. And the name of my database, as you can see, is PHP Tutorials, PHP Tutorials. The four inputs that I'm going to use is what? Localhost, root, and then what? Empty password, meaning we don't need any password to connect to the database called PHP. And this is the name of the database. So I'll just go to this browser and test if my PHP is communicating with my database. To do that, I can just do / and say dbconnect.php, hit on enter. As soon as I see a connected, message, it means my PHP file is now communicating with my database. Okay, it's now communicating with my database. So what I will do is I am going to now make sure I include this connection file to any page that I am going to be working on. So I'm going to use the PHP include function. Okay. So we continue by including that of the DB connect file to our index page and see whether we will get that message to that says connected as well. So you just use the include function. So the include, and then you just bring in your double quote and you say include, then you mention the name of that file, DB what connect, DB connect dot php. Just like this, you terminate and you are cool to go. So I'm going to test to see whether I will see the message connected on my index page. I'll just refresh and as you can see, I see connected here. So now I am connected to my database. The name of the database is PHP tutorials. So the next thing that we are going to be looking at is how you will be able to send record into your database after you are connected successfully. Right? So let's pause here, take some water and come and continue. Okay, so let's continue after taking some water. Barely 10 minutes or 8 minutes now. I hope by 15 minutes time this tutorial will be done so you can follow through. If it is long, it makes it boring. Okay. And so now that we are done coding our DB connect file and the connection is working, we will close that one. We'll go to the index and take notice of some things. Listen. Now, within your form tag or your form element, you are supposed to make sure you have the file that is saying insert.php inside of the action. So action equals insert.php and then method is going to be what? Post. Method is going to be what? Post. Now, this file that says insert.php has to be created. So now we can code on the actions and then the logics that we need for this particular thing to happen on that insert. So what it means is all the line of codes that we were supposed to run inside of this particular place here is what we have just replaced with insert.php. So we are now going to run that code on the insert file. Now, when you are doing the input, make sure every input has a name. So for instance, this one, the label for first name, the name is what? First underscore name. We will use it. If you look at the last name, the name is what? Last underscore name. If you look at the submit button, the name is what? Name is what? Submit. We will use this when we go to the insert.php. So take notice of it. When you are doing your own as well, you are supposed to pay attention to it. Now we'll quickly go to the insert.php. Now, if you want to do the connection string again, you don't have to type everything on the DB Connect. You just have to say include dbconnect.php. That is all. So the comment is saying connection string using the include function. Okay. Now we are going to say we want to check if a button is clicked. So if this button, for instance, is clicked, what should happen? What should happen? So that is the condition that says if a button is clicked, what is supposed to be happening is what post. You get to understand this. For now, you are supposed to practice how you get your data into your database. As you keep growing, you understand some of the logics and some of the reasons why some things were done how it is. At this point, it's too early to understand all the complex, codes. But then, a set, if a set is saying that if the form has been, like data has been inputted into this particular form, if a set, for instance, I type Ghana, it means it is true if it is set. So it says if it is set or if a set post, then submit. The submit here is the name that we give to this button here. So we are going to call that name. If you change this one, let's say the letter T, this whole program will not work because the name here is not the same name that is up there. So you have to take notice of the name when you are creating your form, and then the name when you are calling them. You can see first underscore name, last underscore name, the same thing when we were creating the form. So this one, I told you to take notice of it. Last name, first name. The same spellings must be followed. Okay. Now, if you have this part checked, so the whole of this part is checking if a button has been clicked. So if a button has not been clicked, nothing will happen. But if a button has been clicked, what should happen? It says attempt insert query what execution. So now we are going to insert record into the database if a button is what clicked. So as usual, you know database basic queries, right? So we assign a value to this variable. This is a variable we have declared and it's called what? SQL. And we are saying insert into users. At this point, we are not using users table. We are using login. So mine is login. So I'll say insert into login. Then I'll mention the names of the what? The columns. And I remember I have username as one column in my database and I have password as one column in the database. Now values. The values are not the ones that we were doing in the normal database. We are going to pick the value from what's the name? What the people are going to enter into the form. Okay. What they are going to enter. So as I said, we are going to pick the values that will be entered from here. So let's say this. So at any point in time, whatever that the user enters is what you are going to grab from here and push into your database. Okay. Now, if you look at the structure, it says insert into login, username, password. Let me go and confirm whether it's the same in my database. So I'll come, the username is username and password is password, but the password is capital letter. So I have to make sure my query matches the same. So I'll just type password in caps, okay, like this. Then I'll leave it. Values, I want to pick everything that will be entered inside of the first input field, that is the first name. So I'm picking this variable. I'll pick this variable and says anything that is assigned to this one, I want it. Anything that is assigned to the last name, I want it. Grab that variable and bring it here. It is the same as taking what is entered here. But if you just say Sophie, for instance, here, always the database will be receiving values called Sophie. We don't want it like that. We want it to be dynamic. So it means you have to go by the option of grabbing what is being entered on the form. Okay, after that, you are now going to bring a condition. If my SQLi query, if my SQLi query into bracket link, and this link is already in your DB Connect, you can see we declared a link here. So because you have already inserted or included this particular dbconnect.php, it is still going to see that link and work with it. So you are saying that if my SQLi query into bracket link comma query is correct, then give me message. Echo means message. Show the user a message that something has what happened. And so if it is correct, you just get a message that says records has been added successfully. If it is not, then you now get an error message. Okay, so let's test this and see if we have an error or not. So we just quickly go to our application and just type in the first name. So I'm going to say Anthony, and then I'll say Destin here and click on submit, and then I see records added successfully. Is it true? Let me go back to the database and confirm whether I have a record inserted. So what I'll do is I'll just say select star from login, and I have Anthony and Destin in the database. So at this point, you have been able to communicate successfully from the user interface to the database application. So this is how you can start developing applications. If it is church management system, if it is school management system, whatever, you design a nicely interface, you put in all your restrictions. If it is supposed to be password, email, you do the nice interface design, and then from there you connect it to your database. And at the end of the day, if any user is supposed to input data, let's say if this is supposed to be a sales system and you are saying you want to buy a product called, let's say, TV, and then your address, you put your address, the amount, you put all those things, they will be able to now track who purchased what at where, and then how much the person paid. So I'll just check again, and I have TV and Ghana. So we have successfully linked our front, I mean, design to our back end, and then it's working nicely. Thank you, and I wish this video helps you a lot in connecting your database to your PHP files and then build on it more as well. Thank you.